Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience today. It is now top of the hour, and I just wanted to welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Courtney Snippa, and I'm the Customer Care Manager at FreePoint Technologies. And we are excited to present to you today, Keeping Up Today and Emerging Ahead Tomorrow. To start with a few light housekeeping duties before we get started, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box that's located with the chat icon at the top of your screen, or it may be located otherwise, but please become familiar with that. You can type your questions at any time, and we will have a question and answer period near the end of the webinar. So with further ado, I will take some time to introduce our presenter today. Paul has co-founded and helped launch many numerous ventures over his 30-plus year career, including most recently the FreePoint Technologies award-winning provider for software and IoT to manufacturers worldwide. Paul has been a keynote speaker and a published writer for multiple magazines and newspapers where he shares his passions to encourage the next generation workforce to pursue a career in manufacturing and support manufacturers in North America to remain competitive through the adoption of IoT technologies. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. With further ado, I will have Paul unmute his mic, and then we will get started with your presentation and look forward to answering some of your questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Courtney. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today, and to some I'll say good afternoon, and to others that I saw register from the other side of the world, I can say good morning. If you happen to nod off and fall back asleep, don't worry, this webinar will be recorded and you'll be able to find it and review it later. The topic is keeping up today and emerging ahead tomorrow. We're at a very, very critical time in manufacturing. It's also a time filled with great opportunities. So the current state of manufacturing is facing a number of unique situations unique to this time. However, we think that there are opportunities to position your company for the future and to tackle problems and situations in industry that have needed addressing, but are coming to bear right now. Two issues that we hear a lot about is the elimination of paperwork and social distancing or managing from home. FreePoint has addressed all of these things with its standard product offering, but they're more relevant now than ever before. Manufacturing today, we call them perfect storm conditions. There's an immediate necessity to do something like remote monitoring and digitization of your processes on the plant floor. There's an opportunity to do it because plants are quieter, people are laid off or are working from home. And there are many government programs and funds available to stimulate industries to adopt Industry 4.0 and digital technologies. Plus, most importantly, we see an appetite from workers to see change and adopt new processes. This is a point that we're really going to drill on continuously because this was an issue before COVID-19 and it will be an issue after COVID-19. There is an appetite from workers to see change. So now is the time. The emergence of the IoT, which is the Industrial Internet of Things, and cloud computing has created all sorts of technologies that are available. I'm going to say at commodity prices. These are technologies that can be deployed today. Companies are forced to aggressively adopt to the new reality, and the technology does exist. And as I said, there are many stimulus programs being offered to restart or reinvigorate manufacturing because governments recognize, especially in North America, they recognize the importance of manufacturing to the economic well-being of society. The market demographics are changing. So even before COVID, this was the reality. 10,000 manufacturing employees retire every day in the US. They have to be replaced by new workers with new attitude. In the next 10 years, there'll be 2.7 million jobs open in manufacturing, 2 million of them are going to be due to the natural growth, and 50% of them are going to lie vacant. Excuse me while I get my screen to keep up with me here. So how do we get started? This is a big problem. It's a problem that's been facing many manufacturers in North America for many years, but they seem to be stalled on the starting gate, at the starting position. And they ask the question, how do we get started? So what I tell manufacturers is Industry 4.0 basically means connecting, and it means digitizing. So connecting, we say you connect to your machines, you connect with your people, and you connect everything, your machines and your people, to the plan digitally. If you had to break down Industry 4.0 into 3 very simple things to understand, it's connecting to your machines, it's connecting with your people, and it's connecting everything to the plan digitally. That's Industry 4.0, and when you think about it that way, it's not difficult at all. So at FreePoint, how we take customers through this is we say identify a small but critical group of machines, connect to those machines, and we'll show you how it's very easy to connect to machines. Collect information for 30 days to establish your baseline, because you really don't know where you're going if you don't have a good understanding for where you've been. And then use that process to engage your keen early adopters. Now this is critical as well, because you have to appeal to the younger generation of workers. And if you have keen workers that have an appetite for change and an appetite for digitization, it's beneficial to you to engage them right away. After 1 day, you'll have remote visibility into your operation like you have never had before. After 30 days, you'll have empirical baseline information that you can measure future progress against. And after 60 days, you will have accurate downtime information, accurate uptime information, and most importantly, you'll have buy-in from operators. So all of this can be accomplished with a simple getting started project. It's a matter of identifying a good project, 6 to 8 to 10 machines in one part of your plant, and committing to connect to them, and committing to connect with your keen operators. So we say, connect to your machines, step 1, connect with your people, step 2, and digitize your plan, step 3. People often ask, why do you do it in this order? And the answer is very simple. The answer is you connect to your machines because it's very inexpensive to connect to your machines. So I'll just throw a ballpark price out there. I'll say the average cost last year for FreePoint to connect to machines of any age, any type, any vintage, probably $1,000. So $1,000 you can connect to any machine. The second stage is the most important. You want to get the buy-in from your people right away. It's the success and failure of your digitization plan or your Industry 4.0 plan is not going to be dependent on your technology. It's going to be dependent on your people. So get your people connected right away. The third step is usually the most costly. Digitizing your plan sometimes involves custom software, sometimes involves expensive software, sometimes involves integration with financial systems. So rather than do the third step first when you don't have the benefit of data, of baseline data, and when you don't have the buy-in of your people, we suggest that's a recipe for failure. Doing the third step first without baseline data or without buy-in is almost guaranteed failure. Get your baseline data, get your people bought in, and then after that, attack the third part of the plan. So if you digitize your plants today, it is easier than you think. You always have to have the end goal in mind, and your end goal is not simply digitization. Your end goal is efficiency and effectiveness. So by following this process, you end up identifying your bottlenecks and inefficiencies in your process. You end up increasing your capacity on your machines without adding additional resources. You complete the jobs more effectively on time more often. Your operators share their knowledge and their experience towards collaborating on improvements. And the bottom line is, if you're a lean thinker, you eliminate wasted time. You make decisions quicker, you make decisions more accurately, and when you do make the wrong decisions, you come to the conclusion you've made the wrong decision faster, and you adjust your course without adding value to your product unnecessarily. So I'm just going to circle back to connecting to your machines. A lot of people think you have to have new machines to connect to an Industry 4.0 or a big data or a cloud-based system. The truth is you don't. FreePoint's developed a technology in 2013 that we would compare to a Fitbit. So as simple as wearing a Fitbit and going to the gym, FreePoint has a technology that connects that way. It's a non-invasive connection that'll connect to any machine. It'll establish and learn the rhythm and cadence of that machine. And from that rhythm and cadence, that learned rhythm and cadence, it will understand when that machine is at a value-adding condition and when it's not, how many parts have been produced, what the cycle rate was, what the downtime periods are, all from a simple non-invasive connection. So on the bottom of the diagram, you see a black box. We'll call that a ubiquitous machine interface to an external antenna, which would be a magnetic mount antenna. And then from there, you communicate wirelessly, not on your Wi-Fi network, but on a personal area network to a data aggregator, which is a simple PC running somewhere on your plant floor. Our experience has told us that the industry spec for this equipment is 300 feet line of sight, but we have been able to run it up to 300 meters line of sight when there's no obstructions. From there, we collect and aggregate the data, we push it to our ShiftWorx server on the cloud, and once it's on the cloud, you have access to it anywhere, from home, from your cottage, from your cell phone, from your office up front. And not only do you have access from anywhere, you can make it visible from anywhere on LCDs, on kiosks, on tablets, on any browser-based device. So connecting to your machines is very simple. The oldest machine that we were connected on was built in New Jersey in 1918. And we've also got equipment that we connected on built in 1928. So as is, without modification, any machine can be connected cost effectively, regardless of brand, age, or type. And as you can see, also without disruption to your IT infrastructure. So now you have to connect with your people. So how do you connect with your people? Well, you can connect with your people using the same technologies that they use in everyday life. They use tablets, they use PCs, they use laptops, they use large screen TVs, they use cell phones. Those are the same devices that you can use to communicate information to people on the plant floor, and they're used to it. People are more used to using a tablet to communicate than they are a pencil and paper and a clipboard. As you prepare for the next generation, you have to take a look at what the next generation is and how they communicate. They communicate differently using technology like I just named, but they're also motivated differently. They learn and retain information differently. They're vital to us, not just as workers, but as customers. And we, the manufacturers, have to adapt to achieve sustainability of our companies and even our communities and our societies. I'm just going to touch on a few things here about communicating and motivation and the retention of information. Older folks would learn things and study things to ascribe it to memory. Younger folks don't do that. They know that they just have to go to Google or to a source of information, and the data and the information is always stored there. And even us older folks, we've adapted too. For instance, I can remember phone numbers from when I was a kid right up until about 15 years ago. And from about 15 years ago forward, I've never bothered to remember a phone number because there's a device that remembers it for me. Well, that's the way it is on the plant floor. As you bring more and more young workers onto the plant floor, replacing the older workers, they're going to carry less and less of that information in their heads because they're going to be dependent upon that information being accessible at their fingertips. For motivation, an older worker would be willing to work for a week without feedback or a month without feedback. As long as they got their paycheck, they would assume that they are doing a good job. A younger worker requires more feedback. A really young worker requires feedback. It's almost constantly. So those are all differences between how we communicate with the existing generations and how we have to communicate and motivate incoming generations. Now, Courtney, I understand we have a timely question.
Yeah, one of our participants has asked, does it need Wi-Fi on the shop floor?
Thank you for interrupting me on that one, Courtney. I would have missed it. No, the system itself has its own built-in wireless, so it's considered a personal area network. It runs on the same frequency as Wi-Fi, but it's not a Wi-Fi system that you have to have in place. You don't have to have wireless routers in place. It's all built in to the product.
Great, thank you for answering that. And if anybody else has a question, feel free to add it into the chat box at any time. If we don't get a chance to answer it right away, I will follow it up at the end of the presentation. So continue on, Paul.
Okay, thank you. So communicating with the operator, engaging the operator going forward is different than it was in the past. The screen that I'm showing now is a simple illustration, and this is a very basic form of gamification, we'd call it. The blue bars represent different machines, and each one of these blue bars is a 24-hour view. You can change the windows to be an 8-hour view or a 12-hour view, but we found that the 24-hour view is most popular because this lets the operator compare themselves with the operator of the previous shift and even with their own performance 24 hours ago. Basically, what we do is when our black boxes detect that there's value-adding activity going on in the machine, we're painting the bar blue. We don't paint it green, we don't paint it red, we paint it blue. And why do we choose blue? Is because green is considered good, red is considered bad. We don't want to present information to operators to make them feel judged. We present information to operators to present it as the truth. Blue is the color most associated with truth, which is why we paint the bar blue. So as the operator continues to add value and run to the appropriate target, the bar is painted blue. In this case here, we've also added a couple of additional KPIs. Every customer gets to build their own templates and their own KPIs. Our guidance for our customers is simple. We say, keep the management metrics to your reporting, to your reports and your reporting systems, and build your dashboards by what matters and makes a difference to the operator. And generally, the number one KPI that matters to the operator on the plant floor is how many minutes did I keep the machine running to rate. That's the number one KPI. As an illustration, an average shift would be 480 minutes. If you take off of breaks, lunch break and 2 other breaks, the average shift would be 420 minutes. If you built a KPI for how many minutes out of those 420 minutes did you keep the machine running, you would probably start seeing numbers like 350 minutes. And as soon as you put this dashboard on the plant floor, that 350 becomes 360, becomes 370, and operators become intrinsically motivated because they're focusing on what's adding value and understanding the difference between productive activity and non-productive activity. Very, very simple. That's we spent years studying this. We have white paper research white papers done by independent organizations, including universities and colleges. If anybody is interested in seeing some of that, I'll be glad to share that with you later. We go one step further than that. So this is what an operator would see typically. The blue bar is truth. We call that it's truth. You're adding value when it's blue. You're not adding value when it's not. But now we give the operator the opportunity to fill in the blanks. So the operator gets to enter just by clicking on the white space. They can enter, highlight the area, pull a drop down and say there was no work scheduled. Click on the white space, pull down something from a drop down. I was loading the equipment. Further to that, if they generated scrap, they could do the same thing. Just click anywhere roughly in the time period when the scrap was created. Enter one piece of scrap or two pieces of scrap and the reasons for it. From the accounting system or the ERP or the scheduling system, you can add now which job is on the machine. So if you think back of my earlier slides, you've connected to the machine, you've connected with the person, and you've connected digitally to the plan. All the information showing up live in real time, not just for the operator, but for the supervisor, the manager, the CEO. Everybody's connected, sees all the information connected in real time. So as an illustration, the operator can either select or inform you of the job that they are actually doing, or the scheduling system can populate that. The clocking in and clocking out, so now you have real clocking in, clocking out times, real live empirical data from the machine, so it's not approximate. Oh, I think I made 2,000 pieces. No, you made 1,768 pieces. If you want to keep track in some cases, like say large injection molding operations where you could have multiple operators on the line, you can keep track of, did I have 2 operators? Did I have 3 operators? If I had a quality issue now, I can go back and find out what my quality issue was, which job was on the machine for that quality issue, which operators were working the line for that quality issue, all the information captured in real time, empirically. And from that, you can create a whole family of reports, either using the ShiftWorx tools or using Power BI and other business intelligence tools, business intelligence software tools that are commonly available and used. Okay, so I just want to summarize a little bit. So we've connected 2 machines, we've connected with people, and we've connected it all with the plan. So we consider this a really nice, simple formula. It's connections to the machine with engaged operators and connected digitally to the financial reporting systems in real time is going to give you a significant and quick return on investment. So we suggested at the start that you start with a small system and you get your feet wet and you establish your baseline and you see what the difference is between an engaged operating team and a non-engaged operating team. And once you do that, you'll come to the conclusion that this is easy, this is inexpensive, and this is tremendously effective. Okay, so where do you go from there? Well, ultimately, we've come to the conclusion that the information has to connect through to your financial reporting systems, and it should connect through in real time. As you eliminate lags on the plant floor, information lags on the plant floor, you see that productivity improves and decisions are made faster. But the same is true with financial decisions. You have to connect through to your financial system. And that's where FreePoint will give you the ability through our APIs to connect right through to the financial system. One of the weaknesses of most ERPs these days is the fact that they are after the event systems. After the job is done, data is input. After the time period is over, data is input. But connecting through to a FreePoint system, now that data can be plugged into your ERP live in real time, and you don't have to wait for the job to be finished, or the week to be over, or the month to be done, or the quarter to be done. You can get in-process analysis and reports. So it's a scalable and adaptable solution that grows alongside your business. So what does a win look like in an interactive digitized plan? Well, a win basically is integration with your ERP, your quality systems, and your engineering systems. It's your work orders, your operating instructions, all coming digitally through to the operator through the same tablet or the same device that you're using to collect their downtime information and their clocking in and clocking out information. It's decisions made in real time. It's everybody on the same page, and it's no oopsies. So for instance, in the facility that's pictured there, there's a picture here of a scheduling system in real time. What used to happen in that shop, and it happens in many shops like that, is twice a week in the morning on Tuesdays or Thursdays, everybody's gathered around a whiteboard for the scheduling, and they adjust the schedule to suit the changing requirements of their customers. And then for a day or two, everybody goes back to their machining center or their workstation and they work on the schedule. If the customer's requirement was to change an hour after that scheduled meeting, you could have people working for the balance of the day, the balance of their shift, or perhaps even 2 days, adding value to the wrong work order, adding value to the wrong parts. So once everything is connected digitally, when something changes at the front end, it automatically changes right through the whole organization. So you eliminate wasted time. If someone made a mistake and there's a quality issue, the quality issue is noted right away. Schedules are changed. You don't waste an extra day or sometimes a week producing a part the wrong way. As an illustration, this is one of our white paper studies. So we studied a shop for a long time to establish the baseline period. And as you can see, it was a fairly nice, consistent period with a slight increase as you went from February through to September. And we attribute this increase to the fact that people knew there was a project underway. So we were just establishing baseline, but everybody in the plant floor saw us, knew what was going on, and didn't see any data, but there was a slight improvement just knowing that they were being measured. And this is basically called, the Hawthorne effect. Here in September, we put screens on the plant floor that showed the live feedback, and they had instantly a 23% increase in productivity just because people were able to see their performance in real time. And the Hawthorne effect came into play big time. At that point, our question was, is this going to be a peak? Is this sustainable, or is this going to actually fall back after the novelty was worn off, which many people speculated would be the case? But as we can see, that did not happen at all. Productivity continued to increment slowly for about 2 months, and then we had another inflection point where productivity grew again. And we found out that this second inflection point was when the continuous improvement people had a chance to analyze 30 or 60 days worth of information, put suggestions in place, modify the improvement, modify the process, and they got an additional increase. The net result here is over a 50% productivity increase on this plant without adding machines, without adding people. The biggest inflection, the first inflection point came purely from the Hawthorne effect. The second one came from putting the data into action, making data-driven decisions using what they learned from collecting the downtime information.
Paul, before you move on to the next slide, I see there's some really great questions in the chat box that I would like to actually get into now, if you don't mind. The one question
Sure.
we had in from one of our participants is, how long is implementation and what are the challenges?
Okay, great question. So typical installation for us now is down to less than an hour and a half per machine. And because we use a Fitbit style of connection where we're not electrically connecting to the machine, there's no requirements to change, update, or modify the machine. Typically we use a sensor that will, it's an inductive sensor that'll clamp onto one or two of the primary signals on the machine and understand when, I'll say, the press is cycling, or the mold is filling, or the spindle is under load, and that we will do with our non-invasive connection. From an IT perspective, the IT department just has to allow one PC to be put on the plant floor with a whitelisted access to one URL, which we provide. And I'd say the IT installation is less than an hour for the whole IT deployment part of it. And it's typically an hour and a half per machine to connect to the machine. So it truly is an out of the box, plug and play kind of solution. I hope that answers the question. It's Courtney, what was the other question?
Yep, the same question, sorry, this is the second question from our same participant. Is everything done remotely, and any components, whether the product or service, require an on-site visit?
No, more and more of our customers are installing themselves. We do provide installation services, and in different parts of the world, we have people that are trained that can provide the installation services. But what we've learned through COVID is that the system is very easy to install, and most of our customers now choose to install themselves.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. And they do reply with a thank you. I see there's a few more questions that are in the chat box, and we're very thankful for those. We're going to hold those questions off until the end of the presentation because we're almost wrapped up with what Paul has to continue with. So we will get to those shortly. Paul, do you want to carry on?
Sure. So 50% out of the box productivity improvement is great. This particular plant, or the one that I referred to earlier, they not only increased the capacity of the plant 50%, they also eliminated overtime, and they also brought all of the outsourced operations back into the shop. So it was a tremendous boon for that plant, and it all came by connecting two machines, connecting with people, and connecting everything to the plan digitally. So now I promised that I was going to set you up for the future, so that manufacturer would be not just get an opportunity to catch up to where they may be behind their competitors or other parts of the world, but I made the promise that we're going to let them get ahead and stay ahead. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to what we refer to as GameWorx. So on the left side of the screen, you see all the reports that are examples of the reports that our system can generate, which are primarily of interest to manufacturers and CEOs and CFOs and schedulers. Very, very valuable information that makes a huge impact in the operation of the plant. However, that information typically does not excite or motivate a young worker. And we've seen more and more of the young workers are video gamers. And why are they video gamers? Because video gaming right now is a performance measurement. It's creates endorphins. It's constant feedback, and that's how most of the young workers are raised. So to put a young worker in a situation where they don't get any feedback until the end of the week or even the end of the shift, most of them can't survive. They cannot go that long without feedback or engagement or interaction. So what we've done is we've taken all of the information that's pertinent to them in their job and their value-adding activity, and we've gamified it. What we discovered with video games, or what I've discovered as an old guy with about video games, is they're not simply competitive games anymore. They're collaborative games where you have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people teaming up to do something together, to build a city together, or to go to war together, or to play sports together. So it's a collaborative kind of approach that younger people, that's more natural to them, the way they think, the way they're motivated, the way they communicate. So what FreePoint has done is we've launched this platform called GameWorx, where you could either use one of our simple games, or eventually you could have third-party game developers develop sports games or whatever popular games, Minecraft or Minecraft-esque games, so that the operator is getting that kind of feedback and seeing those kinds of results in ways that actually influence their behavior and their level of engagement. Because remember, the next big challenge facing manufacturing, and it started just prior to COVID, in the years just prior to COVID, it's going to be exacerbated because of COVID as more and more North American manufacturers go to reshore their manufacturing. The acute labor shortage that they were experiencing before the pandemic is going to be exacerbated, and it's going to become even more critical after the pandemic. So 10,000 manufacturers are going to retire every day in the US. They have to be replaced by the next generation that communicates differently and is motivated differently. And we already know that if you engage people, and we've proven that if you engage people with information digitally in ways that make a difference to them, the capacity of the plant can increase at a minimum 50% without adding equipment, without adding people, without adding overhead. Now with COVID and all of the funding available, now is the time for any company thinking about whole-scale changes on their plant floor to aggressively put those changes and strategies into place. It drives immediate productivity, performance improvements, empirical data, that everybody wants data, immediate access to real-time financial information, the elimination of manual entry into the ERP, and the elimination of errors. And more importantly, again, as I said at the beginning, there is an appetite for these kinds of technologies to be brought onto the plant floor, and there's no better time to do it than when there's the appetite there to do it. Getting started is not hard, it's easy, it's not expensive, it's actually very inexpensive. Today you could gain remote visibility, less paper, improve your company for the future. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up.